Good morning, everyone. I am Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Thank you all for joining me this morning. Another beautiful Monday morning, right? In August. I don't even know what day today is. I think it's the 26th, the 26th of August, and it is also my 27th episode of Tabs on Tap. So again, thank you for joining me. So happy to have you all here. And I'm going to turn the comment line on. I almost forgot. As a matter of fact, I've been receiving a lot of text on the text line. It was down for a couple of days. I got it fixed this morning, so thank you for that. I will eventually be able to respond to those next messages. But man, it's a Monday morning for sure. For me, it is anyway. I got up at my usual 4 a.m. Good morning, Jay. But it feels like a Monday morning. It's one of those mornings like I just had a really crazy couple of weeks. I think most of you guys know that I had the boat fire last Sunday. Well, yesterday, my mom drove my Jeep, the new Jeep, and she calls me, and she's about an hour and a half away from where I am, from my home, and she said that she had a flat tire. She thought the transmission was out. The car would move forward. Like, what in the world is going on? Well, it turns out that what happened is I guess there's a little bolt or pin in the caliper, and it popped out with such force that it blew the tire. So we had to call AAA. Good thing to have AAA and a premier membership because they told me if I didn't have a premier membership, the towing would have been $500, which is absolutely insane. So hopefully today will be a better day. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Bill. I hope you guys all had a great weekend. You know what I did this weekend? Good morning, Michelle. Is I attended the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame dinner, and it's an award ceremony. There were several inductees, this year, and it's such a fun time. And I post about it on my Facebook page pretty often. If any of you have the opportunity, we have this annual dinner once a year. We have a golf tournament once a year, and usually in May or June, and then we have the dinner in August. And I'll tell you, you don't want to miss out. So next year, plan ahead. See if you can make it to the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame dinner. You can go to their website. You can easily look them up by St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame. And it was such a great time. The local hockey community is really just amazing. It's a big, huge family. We had over 400 guests that attended, which was really nice. A lot of people you guys would know, a lot of local hockey players. It really is nice. We have our former Blues players there. Sometimes we have some current players. There's so many different people that come together. The players and their families, and coaches, referees, and it really is a good time. And it's a cocktail hour. It always starts at 4 p.m. Then we have a formal sit down dinner at 6 p.m. Following the dinner, we have the speeches. We have our members inducted into the Hall of Fame. And then there's a little bit of party afterwards. And the dinner is going to be held at the St. Charles Convention Center. So most of you know where that is. Good morning, Dottie. So hopefully you guys had a good weekend and had some fun. I'm not sure. I think I'm having allergies today. I'm just off. Do you ever have one of those days where you're just off? That would be my day today. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Ryan. I am just off today. I'm not really sure what's going on. But one thing I want to add out there really quick is Wednesday. I'm going to be doing a replay on Wednesday, and I'm actually going to play last Wednesday's show this Wednesday because I have to work. There are mornings when I just have to work, things I have to do. I work on Wednesday morning from early in the morning till late at night, and I just cannot get out of it. So I'm going to talk to Colonel Joe Adams. Even though on Wednesday, we're going to play a prior episode, so you'll hear Colonel Joe Adams on Wednesday anyhow. I do hope to have him join us another day this week. That's my goal. I need to inform him of that. Of course, he's probably hearing it now for the first time. Good morning, Rob. Google Kamala's slogan. Oh, strength through joy. Rob, we did. I actually talked about that last week, and I showed a screenshot of the entry online where it talks about 1933 Germany Nazis. And you really do. They don't try to hide it, do they? Does the Democrat Party try to hide the fact that they're Nazis, that they want to bring communism back. They don't hide it at all. You just have to know what to look for. So yes, Kamala, see what I mean? Monday morning, Kamala, Cami Harris, her slogan is "Strength through Joy," straight out of 1933 communist Germany. Good morning, Sherry. And just again, so many things I want to get to today, so I better get to it, right? I better get to it. I've been hearing a lot of reports about monkeypox vaccines in our local schools in the St. Louis area, about schools talking about enforcing mandatory vaccinations for monkeypox, which is insane. How is this even possible? I'm waiting for more information on that. It's so hard for me to even believe that this could be happening. And I hope it doesn't happen because, boy, we won't take it this time, will we? There's a new COVID vaccine. Already, we are seeing the reports out. You'll see the headlines that these new COVID vaccines are available. Of course, the CDC suggests everyone go and get one. And and I know, many people will go and get one. So that's making its rounds. I wanted to talk a little bit today, not a little bit, I want to talk a lot today about censorship. There's a lot going on. You guys have heard me go on and on about Elon Musk and X and how right now, Elon Musk, what does he refer to? The enemy of the state, right? He's referred to as the most dangerous man in the world. Why? Because he has a platform called X that allows free speech. Well, guess what? I also talk about Telegram a lot, don't I? Well, now Telegram, man, they are coming after Telegram just as they are coming after Elon Musk. It is happening. We're going to talk about that. The founder of Telegram being arrested in Paris. And they originally were going to just detain him for 1 day, and then they decided to extend that period of time. And the prosecution's office is going to make a press announcement today. So it'll be very interesting to watch that press conference today to see exactly what all is going on. And I'm going to get into that in much more detail here shortly. I will talk about the cost of illegal invasion. I mean, don't tell me our country hasn't been invaded. It certainly has been invaded, and we feel the cost of that every single day. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about a rise in terror attacks, ISIS taking claim for 3 attacks over the past week. We haven't had any terror attacks in this way anytime recently, so that's something to talk about. I want to talk about, what does MAGA really mean? You see this Trump flag behind me, right? What does MAGA really mean? We're going to get into that. We're going to be talking about we're always the world's police, aren't we? Now we're trying to restrict Russia even further. It's like we won't let up. We have to control the entire world. And I'm telling you, I'm going to give you some updates on BRICS. Russia doesn't care what we do. They're not worried about us at all. As a matter of fact, they announced that Palestine, because as you know, the Middle Eastern countries, let's say Iran, China, Russia, they're all saying that they expect for the Palestinians to have their own state. And they want the situation with Israel to stop, of course. We're going to get into that a little bit more. But now it has been announced that Palestine will be joining BRICS. And so what comes with that? That's something to definitely get into. Oh, let's see here. I definitely want to talk about, I signed up for that Turn Up the Trump. Remember when I was talking about that Turn Up the Trump? I am telling you, I am having a Monday. Turn out for Trump. Turnoutfortrump.com. You can go on and sign up to be a canvasser, door knocker for the Trump campaign. And I went online whenever I talked about it. I signed up and they got back to me. So I'm going to go into that a little bit with you all as well. What else are we going to talk about today? Fluoride. This is a really big deal. I want to talk about fluoride because there was a study done, of course, not here in the United States, because we're never going to tell our people what's really going on. This was a study done in Britain, and they talk about the fluoride in water and how it can lower the IQ of children. So we have to get to that because it's been a concern of mine all for many, many years, and it continues to be. And when you hear what the levels of fluoride are in our water in these testing samples, it is going to blow your mind. Good morning, Linda and Dottie. It's just amazing how fast all these jabs become available trials. Who needs them? You are the trial, Dottie. Not you, because I know you're not going for it. It is the trial. Genevieve, good morning. First day back to work today. Oh, good for you, Genevieve. We'll be with my morning tribe till 8. Yes, I'm telling you, and it is seriously a Monday. I feel like it's a Monday. Jay, it would be a huge mistake allowing Palestine to join BRICS under Hamas leadership. And good morning, Bonnie. Yeah, we're going to get into Palestine joining BRICS and how the leadership will work out. And you have to remember, Jay, now I'm not speaking this from myself. I'm speaking this as a world and how the world sees things. I've told you guys many times that terrorism is subjective, right? Who deems a certain organization as a terror group is subjective. And there are many parts of the world that recognize Hamas as a leadership group, not terrorists. So think about that a little bit. That's the case in a lot of parts of the world and with different groups. Our country wants to think that Bashar al-Assad is a terrorist. Not at all the case. So good morning, Cindy Giordano. Jay, my son who has epilepsy qualified for a program and starts his first college class today. Oh, good for him. Jay, I'm really glad to hear that. So much going on today. Again, I hope you guys all had a good weekend. I know I'm having one of those days. Like I said, I'm not ready to proceed. I stood here for a couple minutes. I'm like, before I press the button, I'm like, I am not ready. If you guys saw the show before the show, me running around trying to get everything together and ready, oh my gosh, you would be like, what is this girl doing? I didn't even have any makeup on 10 minutes ago. I'm standing back here behind the computer trying to get everything together. And I've been up since 4 a.m, but I'm always trying to bring, just so you know, I am always trying to bring the latest news. So I am watching the news seriously all morning long. I get some things together the night before, but there's news that breaks overnight. So it's very important to make sure that I'm constantly watching the news. And so that does take a little time out of my morning to try to make sure I have absolutely everything in line for you guys. That's always my goal. And, as you guys probably know, today is the 3rd anniversary of that withdraw from Afghanistan. How could we forget, right? How could we forget? 13 of our American troops unfortunately lost their lives that day. And Donald Trump made an announcement. I'm gonna talk about his speech a little bit. I'm gonna play it for you first, and then we're gonna get into this just a little bit.
This month marks the 3-year anniversary of the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. Kamala and Crooked Joe's catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan has just been horrible for all of us. 3 years ago, Kamala and Biden's incompetence left 13 dead warriors, hundreds of civilians killed and grievously wounded, and $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment on the planet abandoned to the Taliban, right into the hands of the Taliban. It also left 45 incredible soldiers so badly wounded, the legs, the arms, the face, obliteration. As Vice President, Kamala bragged that she was the last person in the room. She was the tough one. She was the last person in the room during that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan decision. She repeatedly praised the decisions, and she said it led to a catastrophe, but it was worth it. The incompetence and weakness on display from the Biden-Harris administration was an insult to every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine who ever served in our U.S. military. As we mark this horrible occasion, we mourn with the families of the great American heroes who lost their lives 3 years ago, and we vow to never forget the supreme sacrifice they made for our country. America cannot afford 4 more years of Kamala Harris in the White House. She is a disaster. She's a radical Marxist. She destroyed San Francisco. She destroyed the state of California. Everything in her way she destroyed. She ran against Crooked Joe Biden and she lost. She was the first one out of 22 people. She was the first one to quit. She never even in the primary made it to Iowa. And this is not a person that should be running right now. She didn't get 1 vote. I'm not a fan of Biden at all. I thought he was the worst president in history. I think she's the worst vice president in history. But she got no votes. He got 14 million votes. They staged a coup. And something like that's not supposed to happen in our country. Under my leadership, our nation will be strong and respected like never before. and I will keep America safe. I will keep it safer than ever before. And if I'm not elected, I truly believe you're going to end up in World War III and you're going to end up in a depression, the likes of 1929. Thank you very much.
What an ominous warning by Donald Trump, wasn't it? We're going to end up in a depression like 1929. It's true. We're almost there now. We're going to lose our right to free speech, and we are going to end up in a war. We're going to eventually talk about what's going on around the world, but it's one of those things like you're waiting for a pin to drop, but there are several pins in the air, and at any point, any of those could drop. It's just a matter of which one drops first. Good morning, Michelle Ann. And I was reading a report about one of the families from who lost a son in that day in Afghanistan 3 years ago. And the mother stated, it was heartbreaking. She stated that they have never been contacted by the Biden administration. No one ever reached out to them. They never received a call. No one ever apologized or talked about or consoled them over what happened to their child. And I think that's just absolutely unbelievable. If you're here in the St. Louis area, of course, we know we lost Jared Smith that day, and his father, Mark, has been very powerful in putting together different events and raising funds and bringing out awareness. So, I've interviewed him a couple of different times, nice guy, and there's a lot he has done in the name of his son. And I think we all remember that day, don't we? What was happening that day in Afghanistan, and if you guys don't remember how this unfolded, let me remind you why it's a failure on Biden administration's part. And that is because they were warned. The Biden administration was warned many months, at least 6 months or longer, prior to the withdrawal, that the Taliban was taking over. They knew. It wouldn't be surprised if they weren't even part of it, because I don't think it's any mistake that they left all of that military equipment there in Afghanistan. They were warned. They were warned that this was going to be happening, and they knew what day it was going to happen. They could have withdrew troops, and Trump had already talked about withdrawing troops. He was already putting a plan in place to withdraw troops. And when Biden stepped into office, he completely withdrew from that plan. He wanted to do things on his terms. Had he followed Trump's agenda, we would have already withdrawn from Afghanistan. We would have already had our troops home. Maybe we could have brought our equipment with us. I know their logic is always that it's more expensive to bring the equipment home than it is to manufacture new equipment. I don't know the logistics of that, but it doesn't sound right to me. It doesn't sound right at all. Good morning, Allison. And I want people to remember, if you don't already, that we knew this was going to happen. Our intelligence agencies knew, Biden knew, Harris knew, all of these people knew what was going to take place. They were not prepared. They didn't do anything about it. And then we had, I don't recall his name right now, the president of Afghanistan took off. I mean, he grabbed the money and ran, literally. He grabbed the money and ran. I can't recall how much money he had, but it was millions of dollars that he took with him. And he even warned the Biden administration, you need to withdraw your troops because the Taliban is taking over. And what did we do? We didn't do a darn thing. And as a matter of fact, just so you know, there are still Americans stuck in Afghanistan to this day. They are still stuck. And if you guys also recall, it was not the United States that went back to rescue those left behind. And I want to remind you how all of this played out. And Jay says that's not true. We've never left equipment behind before this was planned. Well, we left equipment in Iraq, which is what ISIS used, to form their group. But I will never believe that the equipment we left in Afghanistan was over money. I think it was absolutely with intent because we already knew what would happen with our equipment, right? We saw what happened in Iraq with ISIS parading our equipment around. Same thing happened with the Taliban. They just had a parade recently to show off all the equipment that we left behind on that day. And I really want to remind everyone what happened on that day and in the couple days leading up to it. It happened very quickly. once it really went down. It didn't because people there knew, but it happened very quickly as far as us responding. And as you guys probably remember, we landed several planes in the Kabul airport. And at that time, the Taliban was controlling checkpoints all around Kabul and the surrounding communities, because obviously they don't want people to leave. And they also are trying to figure out who is complying with America. And so the Taliban set up all these checkpoints. Now, you could reasonably get through the checkpoints if you had a large sum of cash. So some of these people who did go back later and rescue Americans and some Afghans, they carried large amounts of cash. It was a very harrowing experience. At the time I interviewed a man who was, I think it was with Project 360. I'd have to go back and look at the name. And he was one of the men that was going back and forth rescuing Americans because the government wasn't doing it. The government wasn't doing it. So Taliban had all of the checkpoints controlled. And as you approached the checkpoint, you had to have documents showing that you were meant to go to the airport. You were meant to be on one of those planes going back to America. And if you had a cell phone, they were checking the cell phone. And if they saw any Afghan that had English on their cell phone, they detained them. Some were killed, some were beaten, some never seen again. And if you were American or if you were supposed to be on that plane, again, you had to have your documents. If you didn't have your documents, you couldn't get through. If you didn't have money, you couldn't get through. So therefore, the majority of people who were actually supposed to be in the airport that day were never allowed into the airport. The Taliban blocked them. They were stuck. And then you guys remember the throngs of people that were coming forward towards the airport. If you guys recall the pictures and the video, they were packed in there, hundreds of people, thousands of people trying to all get into the airport. They were handing their babies. Do you remember that? Afghans were handing their babies over the fence, trying to get their babies out before the Taliban took over. And then we had all of a sudden a complete breakdown, and people just rushed the gate. Remember? And they rushed the gate and they all boarded these airplanes. They sat down, they wouldn't get up. And these pilots they had no choice. They had to leave. They had minutes to leave. They were warned by the Taliban, if you don't leave now, you're not leaving at all. And what ended up happening is they left thousands of Americans behind, thousands of Afghans who were assisting our military and obviously would be killed. They left them behind. The pilots had no choice, unfortunately. It was just completely disorganized, all at the hands of Biden. And we ended up with 93,000 Afghans who boarded those planes. I kid you not, 93,000 Afghans boarded those planes. And they ended up here in Washington, D.C. They shipped them over to Virginia, where they held them for a bit, and then they let them go. They didn't vet them. They didn't ask who they were. They didn't ask why they were here. They were there, I think it was 2 weeks or maybe even 1 week, and they let them go. Now they're fanned out all across our country. We have no idea who they are. And then, of course, we had the bomb that exploded over there at Gate, I think it was called Gate 13. And we lost our 13 heroes. And it's so upsetting to me. I was so upset at the time, and it doesn't change. Actually, I'm like breaking out in a sweat, quite honestly, because it bothers me so much that all this happened on the Biden watch. It didn't have to happen. So I hope as today progresses and you all have, and you'll see reminders all day long if you turn on the television or the radio or read any news about today marking that third anniversary. I want you to keep all of that in mind because none of that's had to happen. And under the Biden regime, our government did not go back and rescue the Americans and the Afghans that helped us and assisted us while we were there. Promises we made to them. We promised these Afghan troops and Afghan citizens that if they helped us, we would get them out. We thought they were essential to what we were doing over in Afghanistan. Abbey Gate, thank you, Allison, for that. I don't know why I read it this morning and just couldn't recall. Thank you. And we promised these people that we would save their lives, and we completely failed them. And what ended up happening is now a good portion of those Afghans were murdered. The Taliban went door to door. They had a long list because, of course, they infiltrated our government they received a list of all of the Afghans. I should say infiltrated with quotes. They had a list of all of the Afghans that had assisted Americans, and they went door to door killing them, killing their families, burning their homes down. People had to escape up into the mountains. It was a really awful situation in our history, a huge failure on our part, and our own government wouldn't even go back to Afghanistan to rescue any of these people, not the Americans and not the Afghans. You know who did it? Private citizens. Private citizens raised millions of dollars. They raised millions of dollars. They took their own airplanes, their own feet on the ground, and they went over into Afghanistan. They risked their lives. They took large sums of cash to pay off the Taliban, and they were able to get a lot of Americans, a lot of Afghans out. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But right now, just remember to this day, there are still Americans and Afghans over in Afghanistan that need to be rescued. It's a terrible situation. It hasn't changed much at all. Jay Saunders, did you know Joe still has never spoken to any of those 13 heroes' families? Yeah, Jay, I was just talking about, you might have missed that part, but I was just talking about that I was reading a statement from one of the families that said they had never been contacted by the Biden administration, not from anyone, no one, period, no one. And I'm not surprised. Are you? I'm not surprised at all. And the Biden administration, man, they're a shame. It's just they brought shame on our country, that's for sure. I don't even I don't even know where to go with it. It'll happen again. It will definitely happen again. And then what? We want to Harris to be the president. And look at how many troops we have stationed right now all across the world, especially in the Middle East. What do we have? About 60,000 troops right now stationed in the Middle East. Now, what if we had to withdraw them under Harris? And like Trump just said in his speech, we are heading towards another war. If Harris wins, and I think we all know she will. We're going to talk about that here in a second also, because I have a statement made by Merrick Garlick, Attorney General, of course, in regards to a Harris or a Trump win. I think he's really talking about a Harris win, right? But we're going to get into that. Allison, in the debate, Joe had the nerve to say no soldier lost their life on his watch. Oh my gosh. Well, they have. And not only at Abbey Gate did we lose 13 heroes, but we have lost other military members in the time Biden has been in office. Because what we also have to remember at any given time, we have our special operations forces, we have our Navy SEALs, we have different people out in different countries on different types of missions. And certainly many of them have lost their lives under Biden's watch. So I think we all know not to even entertain anything that man has to say. Linda, Biden kept looking at his watch. I remember that, Linda. He did. He kept looking at his watch, and you know what? He doesn't care. The man has no empathy. It could be partially he has no idea what's going on, but partially he really has no empathy. He does not care at all. Jay, he left one vacation straight to another vacation. So who's actually running the country? Well, it's never been him. I think we know that. Never will be him, never has been him. And it won't be Harris either, like Tulsi Gabbard told us. It won't be. Jay says, I personally can't wait for the debate. I think it's going to be ugly for Harris. Oh my God, is it ever going to be ugly for Harris? I can't wait either. I cannot wait for these debates to take place. And I really wish they were doing the debate on September 4th on Fox. I think that would have been fantastic. But of course, Harris refused to do that debate. She is not a good debater at all. I am sure they are coaching her, but how much coaching can you do? I mean, look how much she's already been coached, and it hasn't helped her at all, right? Not at all. I don't think there's really much hope for Harris in that regard. But I'll tell you what, I'm not going to miss the debate. I'm absolutely not going to miss the debate. But I will tell you one thing, something that's been in the news a lot recently. Oh, wait, Patty, also pay attention to Aurora, Colorado. Venezuelan gang is raising havoc. Harris let them in. Yes, Patty, I played a video last week about that, where we had a woman in Colorado talking about that Venezuelan gang. And she was talking about how they're taking over these apartment buildings and hotels, and you know carjackings and all kinds of things. And the Venezuelan gangs are taking over in a lot of big cities across the country. We used to have gangs like the Crips and the Bloods. Well, maybe that's a thing of the past. Now we're dealing with Venezuelan gangs. Thank you for bringing that up, Patty, because we're going to be talking in a few minutes a little bit about migrants, illegals, and that type of thing. Oh, thank you, Patty. No, never forget. We cannot forget anything about Venezuela because, man, they are here. They're growing in numbers, and we can't deport them. Good morning, Karen. And I wanted to talk about Attorney General Merrick Garlick. Have you saw the statement that he made? Did you see this? Because he is basically talking about the peaceful transfer of power. And in other words, a threat to Americans that, hey, look what happened to the J6ers. And if you even think about coming out and any type of protest about the transfer of power, and I know he's talking about Harris, because we all know they have that in the bag, don't they? And what are they going to do to us? I think we all know exactly what they're going to do. But you know what? You can hear it in his own words.
I guess as a follow-up on Scott's question, you're sitting in these hearings with prosecutors and judges at the courthouse down the street. They're increasingly expressing concerns about the upcoming transfer of power and the potential danger of another January 6th. Do you share those concerns at all?
I think our prosecutions have made clear what we think about people who try to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power, which is an essential and fundamental element of our democracy. I quibble about whether we have 1,500 or slightly less than 1,500, but we have way more than 1,400 now prosecutions, and we have a substantial number of convictions. I think that's shown to everybody how seriously we take an effort to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power. The last January 6th, the coming January 6th, and every January 6th after that. I want to make clear to anybody who's thinking about interfering with that, they can see what we've done with respect to the January 6th prosecutions, and the Justice Department will continue to protect our democracy.
What they consider a democracy, right? What exactly is a democracy these days? I don't think they understand the term of what a democracy is, not to mention the fact about being a republic. I mean, come on now. It's a threat. It's not even a veiled threat. It is an outright threat that when Harris wins, and I firmly believe she will, when Harris wins, do not go out into the streets. Do not go to Washington, D.C. That's what he's saying. Do not interfere, is what he's claiming to say. We know exactly what's going to happen, don't we? We know exactly what's going to happen. And I really think, and I've said this before, I don't promote violence. I would never condone violence. But whether or not it's Harris that wins or Trump that wins in November, there are going to be people who do take to the streets. I think that if Trump wins, it's going to become extremely violent. I think we will all have a little bit to worry about if that happens. And I think we know that the groups behind Harris are violent people. Antifa, very violent group. The Communist Party here in the country, there are several communist parties now, also can promote violence. There is a lot that happens, and I think we really have to keep mind of that. Now, if Trump wins, I don't expect that to happen, as you guys all know. I've said it many times. They're going to do lie, cheat, and steal to make sure it doesn't happen. Well, then what? Are we also going to take to the streets? Because I'll tell you what, they're probably not going to arrest Antifa. They're probably not going to put the communists in jail. But if we get out in the street, guess where we're going? We're going to be heading over to Gitmo, right? The DC Gitmo, because that's exactly where they're still holding several Americans, which is certainly political persecution. So I thought that was kind of interesting that he made that statement. Remember when Joe Biden told us that if we ever thought or gave any, made any actions towards any type of uprising against the government, that he would come at us with Hellfire missiles? He said our AK-47s would mean nothing because he's got Hellfire missiles. So we got to be careful because they will not hold back. Ryan, you keep saying Harris wins. She will not win. Do you mean to say Harris will steal it? Well, yes, exactly. Steal, not legally win. I think we all know that couldn't possibly happen. Definitely lie, steal, and cheat. Ryan. Darren. Good morning, Darren. And so much going on. We're losing our freedom every single day. And I've talked about this a lot. Again, by the way, sorry, I want to talk about Agenda 47. So if you're here and hanging on, here shortly, I'm going to go through Trump's Agenda 47, his official release to some of his policies. So I want to put that out there. So don't go anywhere because we are going to get to that. But I think this is more important right now to what's going on today because it doesn't matter what Trump's policies are if we can't talk about it, if we can't share what his policies are, if we can't share the truth, then nothing matters, does it? Nothing we talk about matters if we can't get the truth out there. Saturday morning, we had in Paris. This is how crazy the world is going. It's I really I can't even talk about it. Again, it's Monday. That doesn't help, but I feel like we're in a crisis situation here when it comes to censorship. And I don't even know if you guys realize what a crisis this is. It is, we are so close to having our freedom of speech taken away from us. I don't even think anybody realizes it. So close. So on Saturday morning, Pavel Durov, he is the founder and CEO of Telegram. Well, he was arrested in Paris. He has a private plane. He's a billionaire. He takes his private plane, he lands in Paris, and they arrest him. Why? Because he refuses to censor Telegram. That's it. He refuses to censor Telegram. And that means a lot of different things. Good morning, Joe Adams. Ted Nugent sends his regards. Well, get him on, Joe. Bring him with you. We'll take him. Love Ted Nugent. Seriously, we're so close to losing our freedom of speech. They are going after Elon Musk. They are going after Pavel Durov. They are going after the Rumble CEO founder, Chris Pavlovski. Chris Pavlovski, he is the founder of Rumble. And we all know, where do you go when you want to hear truth? You go to Rumble. Well, he was in Europe. Chris Pavlovski was in Europe when the arrest of Pavel Durov took place. And guess what he did? He made a run for it. He got on his plane and he left Europe because he knows he's next. They are coming after X, Rumble, and Telegram. And they have completely redefined the term disinformation, haven't they? Who determines what is disinformation? Come on. Our government tells us the truth is now disinformation. And because Elon Musk, Chris Pavlovski, Pavel Durov, because they refuse to hire fact checkers and to censor speech on their platforms, they're being arrested. And I'm telling you, they will come for Elon Musk next. There is no question about it. I'm sure his head is on a swivel because they are coming for him next. They're coming for all of these three men. And where do we go from here? So Pavel Durov is still in jail in Paris. They arrested him on Saturday. They said it would let him go later that day, but it didn't happen. They decided to extend, his jail sentence or jail time or whatever it is they're doing while they investigate. It's all about censorship. Now, I will tell you this on Telegram, a lot of this is about war. Now, we go on, we tell our truth. I have my show on Telegram. I read a lot of truth on Telegram, but a lot of this is about the censorship of war because war has changed, hasn't it, with technology? And so now what we have, and I don't talk about this here on the show, I don't show the videos on this show because they're very graphic. When I see a video on Telegram that is about war that I think is important for you to see, I do share it on my Telegram page. However, I cannot talk about it here. For one, it's just awful. And two, they would ban me in a flash. But now, in times of war, all of these helicopters and drones and planes and soldiers, they're all live streaming. All of them are live streaming. There are hundreds of thousands of live streams out on Telegram of various troops, drones, again, people in war. And you see the bodies because, they live broadcast everything because there's so much propaganda. And some of the live broadcast is propaganda too. So you really have to sort through it and try to figure out what's real and what's not. But if especially in the situation in Ukraine and Russia, Ukrainian troops do a lot of live streaming. Russian troops do live streaming. And you can watch these videos and you can see the tanks being blown up, or you can see the drone shootings, you can see the bodies on the ground, and you can see what they have. And it's really disheartening to see all of that. But the government, particularly in Europe, here in the United States, they don't want you to see this information. They don't want you to know what's really going on in these other countries because it doesn't fit the narrative they try to sell us. So that's really what this is all about. It's all about the narrative our government and the government in Europe tries to sell you. Anything NATO related, NATO wants to control the media. And Ukraine, the director of the Committee of Free Speech literally just made a statement in Ukraine the other day that said they have to get rid of Telegram now. They cannot wait any longer. It needs to be done now. And Apple is talking about deplatforming Telegram, deleting the app. And there are ways to go around that to make sure they cannot delete the app. But they're trying to. Of course, they're trying to, because they don't want you to be able to read the truth. Because the government tells you one thing, right? And then if you can go out and you can see these live streams of war, you can read all these different reports and things that are going on, then you know the truth and you know your government's lying to you. And what happens then? You have uprisings, you have revolts, you have all of these civil war that takes place. And that's exactly why recently we had Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, the new president, reelected president, quote, quote, another fake election, why he is banning X over in Venezuela, and why he'll probably ban Telegram, because he feels that it is literally Elon Musk, and he's called out Elon Musk numerous times, and you've heard me talk about that, because he thinks that Elon Musk has caused the uprisings that are taking place in Venezuela simply because his platform allows the truth to speak. So my message to you is to go out to Telegram, go to X, go to Rumble, and create an account. Because what we have safety in numbers, man. If you want to fight for your freedom, join these three groups: Rumble, X, Telegram. Even if you don't use it, just create an account, because these platforms are the only thing we have left to represent our freedom. And if they take them away from us, we have nothing. If you don't have the freedom of speech, you have nothing. So please, and I'm on all three. So please go on, follow me, subscribe, and to all three of these platforms, and just hang tight because we have to protect our freedom in any way possible. That's one way to do it anyway. Robert, going after Rumble as well. Yeah, Robert, I don't know if you missed that, but I was just talking about that. Chris Pavlovsky, the founder of Rumble, had to leave. He literally fled Europe. He feared for his arrest. And we know Andrew Tate over in Romania. We talked about that. I think it was on Friday, where they have arrested him, searched his home. They claim that he has been trafficking women, minors, and all this other stuff. When I don't know that much about Andrew Tate. Hopefully, none of that is true. He claims, of course, that it's political persecution because he tells the truth, and he certainly has told a lot of truth. Patty says, I attended parties at the Kennedy compound in Hyannis. First day friends paid lots of money for a hot dog and chowder. Second day was for the media from all over for free. That's how they got the media on their side. Of course they did. Crew, strength through joy. When the evil shows you who they are, believe them. You better believe it. And that is their slogan, which of course takes us back to 1933, Nazi Germany, as we know. I really wanted to talk about the situation with Pavel Durov being arrested in France, because it's going to be a big topic as the weeks come on. Because if they find that he's guilty, and it's not like the United States, we're not quite as bad as Europe at this point. If they find he's guilty in France, I mean, right now they have him in a jail cell. They can hold him. They don't have the same rules that we do here. And if they find him guilty for not censoring for disinformation, they could very easily deplatform Telegram altogether. And Telegram is very important. So I wanted to make sure I got into that. As you guys know, RFK Jr., we talked about that a lot last week. he finally came out just like we expected he would and endorsed Trump. And you saw the video, and there was a song. What was the song that was played? I'm trying to remember. There was a song that they played. Oh, it was by Foo Fighters. They played a Foo Fighters song when he came out. You Are My Hero, something like that. And I saw that there was a I keep trying to call it a tweet, an X statement that came out. And somebody asked the Foo Fighters, hey, did you give Donald Trump permission to play the song? And they're like, emphatically, no. So I hate that because I like Foo Fighters. Now I guess I'm not going to be able to listen to their music anymore. And JFK Jr., or what in the world is wrong with me today on a Monday? RFK Jr. made a statement, and I love this statement. I'm going to read this to you because I think it's so important. This defines what he states MAGA really means. And we all know the term MAGA, which of course these days is synonymous with terrorism. That's what kind of country we live in today. And I want to read this to you. I posted this on my Facebook page, so some of you have already read this, but I thought it was really important to read it again. So this comes from Robert Kennedy Jr. He says, what MAGA really means. The phrase has troubled liberals who think it is a call for a return to an America before civil rights, gay rights, and women's rights. But I have a more generous interpretation, one that is truer to my experience of Donald Trump as he is today. Make America Great Again recalls a nation brimming with vitality, with a can do spirit, with hope and belief in itself. It was an America that was beginning to confront its darker shadows, could acknowledge the injustice in its past and present, yet at the same time could celebrate its success. It was a nation of broad prosperity, the world's most vibrant middle class, and an idealistic belief, though not consistently applied, in freedom, justice, and democracy. It was a nation that led the world in innovation, productivity, and technology, and it was the healthiest country in the world. I have talked to many Trump supporters. I have talked with his inner circle. I have talked to the man himself. This is the America they want to restore. I love that. I thought that was such a great statement about what MAGA means. What does it mean to make America great again? People want to say that it's racist. They want to say we're bigots. They want to say we're anti gay. There's all kinds of different things they want to call us. And to me, that's never made sense to me because I'm like, what does that have to do with making America great again? None of us are saying we want to go back to a time before the civil rights or before gay rights or so many of the other things. That's not what anyone is saying. I think we are the party of live and let live, right? You do you, let me do me, and let's all live in peace. But unfortunately, those folks to the very far left, they don't understand what peace is or allowing us to live peacefully within our own values and our own ideals. And I think if there was ever a time when we needed to make America great again, it would be now. It would be now. And I'm going to show this clip for you because this is the America that so many see. And I'm going to turn the music down because I don't like it. I don't know why when people make videos, they always feel like they have to have this music over it, which drives me insane. But I want you to see the America that so many people live in. Most of us, if you're listening to the show, I would say that you're probably getting by at least. Some probably barely, but at least getting by. You have internet, you probably have a cell phone, you're probably sleeping in a home at night. That's not the case for so many Americans. And we know that there's never been a time since the Great Depression where we had so many people who are displaced, who are living on the streets. But the difference between now and then is back then we didn't have fentanyl or heroin or meth or all of these other drugs. And now we dealt with mental health differently back then. Now we don't have a system for mental health. We don't, or for drug addicts for that matter. If you're living on the streets and you're mentally ill and you're doing drugs or alcohol or those types of things, there's no help for you. There's nothing we can do. And to me, that represents America for too many people. And I really do think that Trump's policies will help these people. And after we're done with this, I'm going to talk a little bit about Trump's Agenda 47 and how exactly we make America great again. That's a heartbreaking video, isn't it? Absolutely heartbreaking. And don't think that this doesn't happen in every city, because it does. I don't think I've ever seen a time in my lifetime where we had so many people living on the streets, very similar to the people you see on this video. It's happening all over our country. People say, "Well, California," and it's true. If you go to California, I was going back and forth to the Orange County back in what, 2019, 2020, I believe it was. I was there pretty often, and I would spend my days, I was visiting someone there, and I would spend my days going to the beach. And so I would take this little tour down the Pacific Coast Highway, and I would stop and walk the trails at some areas. I would go down and stop at a beach and hang out for a little while. Every beach I went to, every single one, the parking lot, there were people sleeping in their cars. There were people sleeping on the beach. One day I lay down and I took like a little nap on the beach, laying out, getting some sun. And I woke up and there's a homeless guy laying next to me sleeping. I kid you not. It is crazy, but it's not just California. It's not. This is happening everywhere. It's so sad. Dottie says it looks like a fourth world. This is in our own country that we've allowed this to happen, and we have to stop it. And I don't think under the Harris administration, they're certainly not going to help anything. We're going to have more people living on the streets. It's so sad to me. It really is to see this, because all of these people you see, these are all someone's children. At one point, these were innocent babies, innocent children. And somehow a lot of them, of course, have mental health problems, a lot of them addiction, a lot of them choose to be out on the street. We know that. A lot of them are on the streets and perfectly good people looking for work, looking for jobs. And I think we all know we're a paycheck away from being on the street ourselves. And that's going to be so much more the case under a Harris administration with her insane tax plans. But let's be positive. Let's hope that there is a solution. And this is Trump's Agenda 47. Now, I'm not going to go over all, but I'm going to go over the top 20, what he calls his core promises to make America great again. And I think you will all agree with me that each one of these 20 promises to Americans is fantastic. Number one, seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. Oh my gosh, I just had a number about that. 400 and what was it? $451 billion we spend every single year on illegals coming into our country. $451 billion a year is what we spend on the invasion of our country. We're actually paying people to invade our country. So I think all of us have no doubt that Trump, again, he reduced illegal border crossings by 92%. There's no question. He will do that again, and he better do it fast, because I just heard that Delta Airlines is hiring illegals because they will work for cheaper. They'll work for less than Americans. So Delta Airlines is hiring illegals. Number two, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. Harris, remember what she said? Close the detention centers, let everybody in, give amnesty to all. Not Trump. Under Trump, he is going to he said that he's going to try to come up with a process to vet people, but people that cannot be vetted, people that are vetted and they don't have great information returned, those people will be deported. End inflation and make America affordable again. Oh my gosh, I hope so. I just got my utility bill in the mail, $788 for my gas. For electric. That doesn't even include my gas. Here in Illinois, your gas and your electric are separate. And, I just paid $264 last week on groceries. And inflation is ridiculous. It's actually called overinflation. Look up the term, what overinflation means. They don't want to tell us it's overinflation, but it is overinflation. Why? Because we're paying for that $451 billion for these illegals to be in our country. Number four, make America the dominant energy producer in the world. By far, we have to. We are losing that game. We know that Biden shut down all of our gas and oil leases. We know that Harris will do the same thing. And then we have Russia, that last week it was announced they were the largest supplier of oil to China. Well, now this weekend, they are also the largest supplier of oil to India. And man, that hurts us. It really hurts us. We need to be the ones supplying oil to these different countries. And we would have and could have, but now we're in a position where we're not even drilling. We are buying oil. We're dependent on another country. Let's see here. Number 5, stop outsourcing and turn the United States into a manufacturing superpower. Yes, because we know how many companies are fleeing the United States and moving their operations to other countries. We know this is happening and we must stop it. That started with NAFTA. Do you remember NAFTA with Bill Clinton? Oh, what a disaster that was. And Donna says, we can't afford to retire or downsize. You can't afford to do a darn thing, Donna. Not you particularly, but us as Americans. And Jay says only, so it says separate depending on provider minus the same. So one bill. Not 100% positive what you're saying there, Jay. Number 7, defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our fundamental freedoms, including the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. Yes, yes, because we know we're on the brink of losing our freedom of speech, as I explained with the arrest of of the founder of Telegram, them going after Elon Musk and Rumble. We are on the brink. And when we lose our freedom of speech, we're going to lose our right to carry arms. We're going to lose every right that we have. And it's not going to take long. They're already going after our freedom of religion. So it won't take long for the rest to follow. Number 8, prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, and build a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over our entire country, all made in America. It is kind of interesting, but why don't we have an Iron Dome? We give Israel a lot of money for their Iron Dome. Why don't we have one? I think we're so naive that we think it can't ever happen here. And I know we have different things in place in our country. We don't have an Iron Dome, and we don't even have anything close to an Iron Dome. And we certainly do need to protect. But as far as preventing World War III, like I said at the beginning of the show, we are so close to war. Like I said, it's not waiting for one pin to drop. There are several pins in the air, and eventually one of them will drop. And it might just drop before the election. So let's see here. Number 9, end the weaponization of government against the American people. That I got chills reading that because that is absolutely 100% my number 1. Political persecution. It is happening. Look what's taking place in Europe. You think that's not going to happen here? There are children right now being held in jail and detention centers for social media posts in Europe. No kidding. Elderly people getting sentenced to 2-3 years in prison for a social media post. It is outrageous over there. And what happens in other countries, it comes here next. It will be here. And not only that, not even that, the J6ers. I just played the statement from you from Merrick Garland, Attorney General, threatening us that if we don't have a peaceful transition of power, if we go to the streets, if we come to Washington, D.C., guess what's going to happen? That was a not so veiled threat against us. Number 10, stop the migrant crime epidemic, abolish the foreign drug cartels, crush gang violence, and lock up violent offenders. And as Patty said earlier, man, let's start with the Venezuelan gangs because they are taking over. Matthew says the UK has gone completely mad with jailing people for expressing opinions. Yes, Matthew, they have. It is insane. Thousands of people arrested. Last time I gave an update, it was 3,000 people that had been arrested. I don't know where that number stands today. That's been over a week ago. And don't think that can't happen here. Number 11, rebuild our cities, including Washington, D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. I've talked many times about our infrastructure, many times. There are nice cities. In fact, I think if you go to Indianapolis for some reason is a very clean city. St. Louis is dirty and disgusting, and I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the city. It's just dirty. If you look around, they don't take care of it. And lots of cities, I'm probably cities near you, you can say the same thing about, right? They do not take care of them. We have old infrastructure. Our cities are not safe. They're not clean. And that's definitely at the top of the list, which is why I played that video showing people, homeless people in every city, on every street. It's happening. Don't think it's not. Let's see here. Number 12, strengthen and modernize our military, making it without question the strongest and most powerful in the world. We've lost a lot of military power, no question, under the Biden administration. In fact, I don't know if we've ever been so weak as a country. We are not prepared. We're absolutely not prepared. I read a report one day, when you go to war, or if, let's just say, something happens and one of those pins drops and we end up in a war, you have to have reserves of fuel, of diesel, of different types of fuel, because obviously you're going to have to fuel your jets. There's a lot of things you're going to have to do. Well, we don't have those strategic reserves in place. And I was told that by somebody we interviewed, I think when I was with Cancel This. And I like, why? Why aren't we ready? What if one of those pin drops today? We're not ready. We are not prepared. Our military is the weakest I think it's ever been under the Biden regime. And I have no doubt that Trump will get that together and get us back in the position we need to be in. And number 13, keep the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. The dollar is struggling, isn't it? The dollar is struggling. In fact, right now, BRICS, we talk about BRICS a lot on this show, BRICS is preparing for the end of the US dollar. We need to save the dollar. BRICS is preparing for the end. They have 159 countries who are all going to come together and use the same currency against our US dollar. So I don't believe the Harris regime will ever fight for our US dollar. And let's see, number 14, fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. Well, the Harris regime, they want to change the retirement age, from what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, to 59. That's not going to happen. And there's a lot of Republicans who are on 59, 69, sorry, who are on board with changing. Remember, it used to be 62 and 67. Well, now they want it to be 69. And I am glad to hear that Trump is not going to let that happen. And of course, we're always trying to take away Social Security and Medicare because of, Harris wants a universal health care system, and that will completely do away with all types of private health care, and that will include Medicare. So think about that. We'll all be on Medicaid. So let's see, 15, cancel the electric vehicle mandate and cut costly, burdensome regulations. What is it? I believe Democrats have the Agenda 2030, where we'll all be driving electric vehicles by 2035. And by the way, that is never going to happen, but hey, they can give it a good try. Number 16, cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, and sorry, my page moved on me, and other inappropriate racial, sorry, I'm having all kinds of technical things here. Let me start that one again. Number 16, cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. We all know what's happening in our schools right now, don't we? And which leads us a little bit further into that. But we know the books, porn books in school libraries. I mean, come on. Is Oregon, I don't know if you know this or not, but Oregon, I just read this over the weekend, no longer in the state of Oregon does math, reading, or writing determine your graduating status. So you do not have to be proficient in reading, writing, or math to graduate high school in Oregon, because they feel that that's racist. They say that forcing kids to read, write, and learn math is harmful to people of color. I kid you not. This is exactly what the state of Oregon has said. So kids in Oregon right now don't even have to worry about learning. I guess they can just come to school and hang out and play. So thank God for Trump on that one. Number 17, keep men out of women's sport. Self-explanatory. Number 18, deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our colleges, campuses safe and patriotic again. And obviously referring to the anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian rioters. People have taken over many of our cities right now with their protests. And let's see here. And of course, all these super liberal colleges are just churning these folks out one after the other. Number 19, secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. Well, Arizona, as we talked about last week, the Supreme Court decided that yes, in Arizona, it is absolutely a case where they need to require proof of citizenship. Who would have thought? So hopefully that will take place. We know, what was it, Alabama who is going to count their ballot. Oh, they're going to use paper ballots this year for the 2024 election. And then we have Georgia, who, by the way, Governor Kemp, if you remember the fight between Georgia, Governor Kemp, and Trump, well, Governor Kemp has decided to endorse Trump. I think he has learned some lessons. So in Georgia, of course, they are going to count the votes. They're going to say, okay, we have X number of people who legally registered to vote and X number of votes, and they need to match. So they're going to go through their votes with a fine tooth comb, as every country, every state. I'm definitely having a Monday. Every state should do the same thing. Number 20, unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success, without saying, right? But how do we do that? Under a Harris regime, that's not going to happen. Don't you think that Democrats want the same things we want? If you read this list and said that this is Harris's plan, don't you think they'd be, oh, that's so great. I love it. That's why Harris is stealing Donald Trump's ideas. And that's exactly what they're doing. You hear Donald Trump will make a statement that he's going to, promote this policy. The next thing you know, well, the Harris campaign, oh, that's their policy. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know what's going to happen in our country, come election time in November. I fear for it. I fear for all. I know that they're going to stop at nothing to make sure that Harris wins that spot. They're going to stop at nothing. And that includes us. They're not going to stop at us either. And I think we do have a lot to worry about. And what do you think? What do you think is going to happen to Trump? I mean, a lot of people are speculating that there could be another assassination attempt. I think that there's a lot of weird information out there that something like that could happen. We've heard the FBI gave a statement last week, which we talked about, where they said, we're at a time where there's a lot of chatter out there about terror attacks. And we had 3 terror attacks that took place claimed by ISIS this week. Germany, over in the UK. We're having when was the last time you heard about an ISIS attack? It's been a long time. And then there's this guy who escaped prison in Arizona who is allegedly wanting to harm Trump. What's going to happen? I don't know. Margie says the difference is Trump walks his talk, Matthew. Even if Trump did win, the left would declare a full-on war against him. They hate him more than they love America. Well, I think we know exactly what our government. I love our country. I know you love the country. I love the United States. You can't see it from here. I have flags in different parts of the rooms, American flags, and I'm going to eventually change this behind me to an American flag as well. We all love our country, but I think we also know that we are not without problems, right? We have a lot of issues in this country, a lot of things we need to deal with. Not only as a people, but we can't trust our government. We just cannot trust them. I did trust the government under Trump. I truly did. I didn't entrust the intelligence agencies that were talking to him and giving him information, but I trusted him as a person. Allison, it will be chaos now. No matter who wins, it will be absolute chaos. Absolutely. And something that if you guys saw my Facebook, I don't know how many of you are on my Facebook page, but I posted something last week and I said, if Trump really wants to seal the deal, he just needs to tell us, are aliens real? What happened to Jimmy Hoffa? I went down a whole list of different things. And somebody, one of you, I think it was, added, well, what about Kennedy? Why doesn't he reveal what happened to Kennedy and the assassination? And, yesterday I saw that Trump has made a statement that if he wins this election, he is going to talk about assassination and he is going to talk about how his attempted assassination came about, all of the details, all of the classified information, and he's going to open up the Kennedy case. What do you think about that? And he wants to go back and look at JFK and the assassination attempt, and he's going to reveal classified information that we've never been told or heard before. So I think that could be interesting. And of course, then they're really going to come after him. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Trump or any of his agenda. I know they'll try to steal it in any way they possibly can. But here, I want to play something for you guys because I think this fits the moment. And, I love George Carlin. I don't know about you guys. He was way before his time. And I'm so glad that I grew up listening to George Carlin. This is what he has to say about assassinations.
Here's an interesting form of murder we come up with. Assassination. You know what's interesting about assassination? Well, not only does it change those popularity polls in a big fucking hurry, but it's also interesting to notice who it is we assassinate. Do you ever notice who it is? Stop to think of who it is we kill. It's always people who've told us to live together in harmony and try to love one another. Jesus, Gandhi, Lincoln, John Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, John Lennon. They all said, try to live together peacefully. Bam! Right in the fucking head. Apparently, we're not ready for that. Yeah, that's difficult behavior for us.
Isn't that the truth? And I'm sorry, I should have given a warning about the language, but I'm telling you, I love George Carlin, way ahead of his time. And again, so glad I really do think, because I grew up listening to George Carlin, that it maybe formed a lot of the things that I believe today. It kind of woke me up, I think, to some of these things at an early age. But I don't trust anything. You guys, I know most of you don't either. I don't trust the CDC, the WHO, the EPA. I don't trust our intelligence agencies, none of them. Certainly not the NSA, the CIA. I do love the FBI, but not the folks at the very far top. And same goes for the military. I love our military members, but if you ever talk to someone who will speak to you a little bit of truth about the military, and I met somebody, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so ago, 15 years ago, who was a general working directly in the J8 team right there in the Pentagon underneath the Joint Chief of Staff. He was part of the Joint Chief of Staff team. And he told me a lot of stuff. And I learned then at that time that even the military, it's still the same game. You only make your way up to the top if you play the game. And the people at the top in our military, what do they want? They want war. And Jay says it's hard to trust the government and its agencies when they're out for themselves and making millions. Of course it is. Matthew says 3-letter agencies are worse than 4-letter curse words. Yes, Robert, I trust us, the people, I hope you mean. We are the only people I trust. I trust you guys. Hopefully you trust me, because, man, we've got to trust someone. Speaking of, in a few minutes, I'm going to get to fluoride, because that's another thing our government is lying to us about, right? Trying to think if there's anything I missed, because I want to make sure I cover it all today. Even though I started a couple minutes late, as usual. Monday morning are never fun for me. But I want to talk a little bit about world politics, and I'm going to swing back around and talk about some of these other things. I want to make sure you guys, if you can, go out to your social media, and that's how we fight now, isn't it? I'm not going out in the street right now and fighting anyone. We need to go on social media. We need to let people know what's going on. Talk to Delta. Ask Delta Airlines why they are hiring illegals, because it is certainly happening. I've got a little video here to play for you, because we know that things have changed in our country. Especially if you're a business owner, you know this. You've always been told when you hire a new employee, you have to have proof of citizenship. It is the number one thing you ask for. You get an ID, and you need a social security card, and or a couple of different items, or you can have a passport. There's several items you take to fill out an I-9 form. And you have to prove that somebody is a U.S. citizen to hire them, or they have to be sponsored. There's other rules that come into visas and things. But it was always against the law to hire somebody who is in the country illegally. But things have changed a lot. Now the Department of Justice, they're suing companies who don't hire illegals. And I don't think that's the case with Delta here. I think Delta Airlines just chose to hire illegals. And now that's my opinion. It's not certainly not a fact, but it is my opinion. And the Department of Justice has sued companies again for not hiring illegals. And that puts us in a very strange predicament, I think, because we're going against the law. They're literally telling you to break the law. And I think you all need to go out to your social media platforms and talk about Delta Airlines and ask them, why are they hiring illegals? Because I don't believe that there are not Americans who would take those jobs. And it's my understanding, and this guy will explain it to you a little bit better than I can. Oh, he doesn't have any sound. Let's see if we can give him sound, and then we will reverse him here. See how far I've come in 27 episodes? I know how to turn the sound on now.
So if you haven't heard, Delta Airlines is now hiring migrants. They're hiring migrants in Denver. And the only reason I know that is because one of my friends who works for Delta is now on hold while they replace him. I wonder why they're replacing him. Well, he wants to work for, 19, and they're willing to work for minimum wage. Of course they're going to replace him. I just find it funny that the same people who are like, we need these people, are the same people that are like, the rich need to pay their fair share. Who do you think wants these people the most? It's the corporations that can hire basically labor for like China prices. They're the ones rooting this on. If you want this, you were literally encouraging the rich to get richer.
Spot on. Go to your social media, do what you do, and find out why Delta is doing this to America. Because you know what? That's the only choice we have. While you have your freedom of speech, you better exercise it, right? Because we won't have that opportunity much longer. I just want to kind of give you guys a brief rundown of just what's kind of going on around the world, because there is a lot going on around the world. I keep saying it every day, and every day it is more true. The world is on fire, literally. Sweden. I mean, what's going on in Sweden? Who would have ever thought this would happen to Sweden? But what did Sweden do? Sweden allowed all of these migrants to come into their country. These people fled, a lot of them fled Syria when the war was taking place there, and technically still is. They fled Syria, they fled Iraq, they fled all these Middle Eastern countries, and now they are in Sweden. It's gotten so bad in Sweden that there are groups of migrant kids, teens, firebombing cars. They're firebombing cars, parked cars. They're going to parking lots and firebombing cars. It's gotten so bad that the women in Sweden cannot go out after dark in many areas. And could that happen here? Could there be a situation here in the United States where you cannot go out after dark because of these migrant attacks? I mean, it can certainly happen. I shared that video. If you want to go to my Telegram page, Tabs on Tap Telegram page, and you can take a look at it. I've shared some other videos that I cannot share here because they do show violence. I watched a heartbreaking video, and I believe it was in the UK last night. It was absolutely heartbreaking, where there was a migrant. There was a man, it looked like he had a baby carriage and a dog. I doubt you guys have seen this video. Walking down the street, and these people are harassing him. It's two guys and a girl. And he turns around, and you can see him talking to these people. And the next thing you know, this guy who is an illegal walked up to him and stabbed him 2 or 3 times in the neck. And you see the guy turn, and he starts to walk away with the carriage and the dog, and then he collapses on the ground. Now, thank God he survived. He was stabbed 3 times in the neck and is right now in stable condition. But that's how dangerous it is in many places around the world right now. And, how far are we from being in the same situation? And Todd, yes, last week, Democratic convention in Chicago. Yes, we saw the craziness that took place in Chicago. And crew, Trump's laying a wreath in honor of the Abbey 13 now. Oh, I wish I could play that live for you guys, because I would love to see that myself. Robert, yes, I saw that video. Ridiculous animals. Yes, they are animals. And if you want to see the video, I shared it to my Telegram page. Why? I think people need to see these videos, because I don't want to desensitize you towards crime, but I want you to see what actually is going on around the world, because don't think it can't happen here. Jay says, won't happen in the rural areas. We will fight back. I think we'll be going to be fighting back in all the areas as much as we can. So Sweden, man, Sweden is a mess. Their females in Sweden have been told after sunset, don't be out on the street alone, because if you are, you could potentially be raped. And they've invited this into their country. They've invited it in. We've invited terrorism and crime into our country as well, and we are certainly paying the price for that. Putin, this not surprising, Putin condemned the Church of England for considering a gender-neutral God. Is God gender neutral? I don't think so. And this is not to say anything against anyone. Again, we are the party of live and let live. You do you, I do me, but leave God out of it. Seriously, just leave God out of it. So Putin condemned the Church of England because, again, they said that God is neutral. I just cannot talk today. Gender Neutral, gender neutral. I need a nap after this. But unfortunately, I have to go to work, so no napping for me. And British media responded back. They said, well, Russia is weaponizing God. Now, how is Russia weaponizing God? If you have the Church of England, who would have ever thought the Church of England would come up with this craziness? And Russia, of course, very traditional in Russia. I was going to play a video of Moscow. I'm not going to do that today, but I think some of us should consider if we ever have to flee, where we're going to flee to. I think it's time to start thinking about that. Jay says non-religious types trying to influence the rest of us. Yes. Yes. Can you imagine a gender neutral God? Nope. Nope. Not in my mind. I cannot. Speaking of, if you want to talk, speaking of God, of course, if you want to go onto my personal Facebook page, I had a pretty good discussion going yesterday. 2 different posts that I made. One, I showed the AI Jesus, which we talked about here on the show Friday. And I love there were so many different comments and so many people had such different views about AI Jesus. And then I also made a separate post asking what skin color is Jesus? What do you think? And so definitely feel free to drop in and take part in those discussions. I think it's pretty interesting. Again, over the weekend, Hezbollah, we've all been waiting for that pin to drop, right? For Iran to attack Israel. Hasn't happened yet. Hezbollah made an announcement and they said, well, we have decided not to coordinate an attack. Remember, they were going to coordinate an attack and they were going to have several different waves of Hezbollah attacking, Iran attacking, Hamas attacking, and the Houthis in Yemen attacking Israel. So it's going to come in 4 waves. Well, now Hezbollah has stated this is not going to happen. We have decided to plan our own attacks to take place on our own way. But one of his message, this was a little bit chilling to me. This is from Syed Nasrallah, of course, the leader of Hamas. I am really losing it today, of Hezbollah. Just tune me out today because, man, I'm having a Monday for sure. And this was kind of interesting because he said that they are going to plan individual attacks. And he says the reasons will become clear eventually. So what are those reasons and how will it become clear? I don't know. I guess we will find out. Jay, more and more churches are becoming less biblical all the time. Well, how can you call them churches? I'm 100% with you, Jay. Yes, they are. And let's see, Jay, non-religious types. So we already talked about that. Jay, can we get into Greek pronouns and adjectives? Found the documents we use to translate the Bible that do use pronouns that are male, female. Essentially, this only points to God being beyond our understanding. Yes. Israel, they released a number that they have lost 701 Israeli troops in the war back and forth with Gaza, Hezbollah, Hamas, 701. And you've got to start thinking, when is war really worth it? Look at the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of troops lost between Ukraine and Russia. When is war worth it? And that's what worries me about the Harris administration. I just like Trump stated in the video that I played for you guys a short time ago, war is imminent. It really is. World War III is imminent. And under a Harris regime, it is absolutely going to happen because these other countries who are our enemies, well, they're maybe not the enemies of us, the people, the enemies of our government, they're going to see us as weak. They already know we're weak. And they're going to see us as weaker under a Harris regime, right? And there's no doubt that eventually one of these pins will drop. And it's probably going to be sooner rather than it is later. And at what cost is it really worth? I don't want to be back on the show in a couple months saying that we've lost, 10,000 American troops, 20,000 American troops. Many of us have never had to experience something along those lines. We've had wars, we've lost troops, but we've never had a world war. I wasn't alive during World War II. I was born kind of at the end of Vietnam. And most of you weren't alive during those wars, during a world war. And I don't know what's going to happen when it comes to the war front. Where are we going? And are you prepared to lose American lives? I'm not. I don't want to be giving you guys a report saying we've lost 100,000 American troops, but that's what's happening in Ukraine. It's what's happening in Russia. And I don't think, again, that we could say it will never happen here. when is war worth it? And, our government doesn't care about those troops any more than they care about the 13 heroes that lost their lives this day 3 years ago. They don't care about any of us. So I don't trust our country. I don't trust our troops' lives in the hands of Harris. And I was shocked to read that 701 troops lost by Israel. It is just heartbreaking. And then Belarus. Belarus is on the move. We talked about Belarus lately, and Belarus made a statement last week that they are very concerned that Ukraine, considering Ukraine is right in the midst of Russia right now, Belgorod. They've recently Zelensky made some threats against Moscow and St. Petersburg. I guess he's just looking for some extra attention right now. And Belarus is worried, and they've, of course, used the word nuclear. And last week, I told you guys that they were going to assemble some troops and put them on the border of Ukraine, between Belarus and Ukraine. Well, they've done so, as we would have expected, because Lukashenko, who is their Belarusian president, if he says something, he's going to do it. So he did station thousands of Belarusian troops right there along the border of Ukraine. And Zelensky, of course, he doesn't like to be threatened, right? The little comedian in the tutu and the high heels, he doesn't like to be threatened. And so he made a statement, and he told Lukashenko of Belarus, if you don't remove your troops from my border, you're going to make a tragic mistake. So what that tragic mistake will be, again, we don't know. I think Zelensky's a little dog that likes to bark a lot and doesn't quite have as much bite. And I know yesterday Russia sent in quite a few drones over into Ukraine and attacked. They actually hit the Hotel Sapphire, if you're familiar with that, over in Ukraine. And that's going to be in the news a little bit more if you haven't heard about it already, because a Reuters journalist was killed in that airstrike. And there were several Reuters journalists that were injured. So if you haven't heard about that, that is going to be on the world agenda. Something, though, that really does catch my attention, and it should yours too, is Russia, Iran, and Iraq. They are working to repair their relationship with Turkey. And I think, they're all talking about BRICS and the power of BRICS. And of course, they're all working together to come up against the United States. And BRICS is so important to me. And I talk about BRICS a lot because, as I've said so many times, every empire in history has fallen, right? Every empire has fallen, no matter how strong. It has eventually fallen. And I feel like we are that empire right now that's falling. And you can see what's happening. You can see these lifelong enemies that are coming together to come against us. Turkey and Syria are not friends. Erdogan and Assad are not friends. For anyone who doesn't recall the facts, but back when Syria was invaded, remember, by the Army of Islam, by ISIS, by al-Nusra, all of these different terror groups, they rose up against the army of Syria, against al-Assad. We were part of that, of course, trying to oust al-Assad. Well, what happened is Turkey gave all of these terrorists a free passage into Turkey. So when you see that we have Turkish people crossing our southern border, or that Turkey is trying to work out a deal with us, Turkey is full of, they're full of good people, but they are also full of terrorists. So always keep that in mind. But we have all of these countries coming together. Saudi Arabia, also part of BRICS. Remember Saudi Arabia? They haven't officially joined. They filled out the application. They are basically following along with the regulations of BRICS. They will be probably formally accepted any day now, is what we are hearing. It is definitely going to happen. And I think it's biblical, quite honestly. I do. I think it's biblical that Saudi Arabia is they're trying to pull Israel in. I know that sounds crazy, but remember the crown prince over in Saudi Arabia made the announcement last week where he felt that his life was in danger because he was trying to make peace with Israel. He was trying to make peace with Iran. All of these countries are coming against us. I don't think Israel will ever join BRICS. But you know what? What about Trump? Would Trump join BRICS? I would really like to know. Would Trump join BRICS? Because maybe that's the only way to save the empire, right? Is to get rid of the UN, to get rid of NATO, and join what will probably likely be the next superpower, which is Russia, believe it or not. And Jay says, we get back to America First policies, we will thrive. You better believe it. And good morning, Mary. And Jay says, nope, you don't think that Trump will join BRICS? I don't really think so either. But I think that he will do his best to take the power away from Russia, to take the power away from China, and to make BRICS a lot less powerful than what they already are. But I don't think we can stop that train. I think BRICS has already risen up. Russia has already risen up, because I've said it about 1,000 times. No world leaders are meeting with Biden or Harris. They're meeting with Russia. They're meeting with Putin. When they have big decisions to make on foreign policies, they don't care anymore what the United States says. They do not care what we think. They don't care what we say. They don't care what our policies are. They are going straight to Putin. And we're worried. In fact, we're very worried. Putin the other day did something which I think is fantastic. And he seized $100 million of Google's money that was being held in Russian bank accounts. And he seized this $100 million and he took it and he gave it to Russian television channels. And because of that, of course, our country, our government's freaking out, completely freaking out. Because as much as we say that we'll have different members of Congress speak out against Google, ultimately they all support Google, don't they? We know that Google allowed the Harris campaign to create their own headlines and sponsored the headlines. And if you did a Google search, guess what came up? All this fake but positive news about Harris. They finally admitted to it. Google said it was a mistake. Well, Putin said, nope, not here in Russia. And he seized $100 million of their money and again gave it to Russian television channels. But because of that, we, the United States, have come out, we've made a statement that said, if any other country allows Russia to open a bank branch in your territory, we will sanction you. We are coming after you. We will prosecute you. They threaten to prosecute other countries' administrations if they allow Russia to open a bank account in their country. So things are a little crazy out there on the world front. There's just so much going on. There's so much fighting taking place in the Middle East and all across the world. I feel like in every country there's something going on. In Africa, they're dealing with terrorism and famine. And Yemen, of course, the Houthis are fighting with the United States and with Israel and with Saudi Arabia. And then we have Israel and Hezbollah. We still have ground troops from Israel in the middle of Hezbollah, sending out different types of rocket attacks against Hezbollah and other Lebanese forces. We have migrants wreaking havoc all across the world, all across Europe. There's a lot going on right now. Everyone, I think, is a little bit uneasy and a little bit unstable. And I feel like here in the United States, things are just kind of treading water, right? Just barely treading water. And there's going to be a tipping point at some point. I don't know what that tipping point's going to be, but something is going to happen. And we're going to see some change here in our own country. I don't like the thought of it, but I do absolutely think it is going to happen. And let's see, I already talked about the cost of the legal invasion. $451 billion is what we pay for illegals to live in our country for free. That's your money. That's your tax money. And I can't wait to see more of what Trump has in his Agenda 47. We went over the top 20. And I want to talk to you guys before we head out a little bit about fluoride. We here in the United States, we have a lot of different programs that test our water, don't we? But do they ever tell us what the results are? No. We can't trust them any more than we trust any other organization, right? Our wastewater. I have a well here, but I drink city water in the house. As a matter of fact, I have a big cup of city water right here. I have a reverse osmosis system. I just can't seem to get my son or my brother to install it. Something I'm working on. And hopefully sooner rather than later. We here in the United States, as much as we test our water, we just lie to the people. Britain, of course, came up with a study, and I don't know if any of you have read this. You probably have. You guys are usually way ahead of me when it comes to these types of things, but I wanted to put this out there. I am just learning about fluoride and how fluoride is so bad for us. And then, do you remember when I was talking about this last week, maybe the week before, I was talking about the IQ of Americans. I expected us to at least be in the 20. We were number 29 as far as IQ in the world. Number 29. And then I was reading a study this weekend about fluoride. Fluoride first came about a very long time ago, a very long time ago, whenever they did some studies and they realized that people who use fluoride or took fluoride, which fluoride is natural in our environment. However, of course, like so many other drugs, it was synthesized. It's no longer natural. And doctors realized that people who used fluoride were having less cavities. So they started putting fluoride in our drinking water to keep you from having tooth decay. That's how it all started. And from there, it is to where we are now. They're loading our water with fluoride. So according to this British study, and it's sad that another country has to do a study and tell us about what's in our own water. And Robert says fluoride is a neurotoxin. Yes, it is. Used to control the German people of World War II. Absolutely, absolutely so. But yet our water is full of it. And so the regulation here, the WHO says, the World Health Organization, now they allow 1.5 milligrams of fluoride per liter of water. That is the world regulation of fluoride. They claim that it's not harmful up to 1.5 milligrams of fluoride per 1 liter of water. Now, here in the United States, we released a report that we fluoridate our water at a rate of 0.7 milligrams per liter, which is far below even the WHO's regulation of 1.5. Now, that's what they lead us to believe, right? That's what they tell us. Well, according to this study, they tested samples of drinking water all across the United States, and the results were mixed, but they found levels of, it was 1.5 up to 4.0 milligrams per liter. Can you imagine 4.0, 4 milligrams of fluoride per liter of water? What is that doing to our body? I would really like to know, especially as Robert said, it's a neurotoxin. What is it doing to our body? And a lot of people believe, and Robert, you'll probably agree with this, that what does a neurotoxin do? It makes you just not care. You can see all the news, you can hear all the news, you can read the news, you can see all these things going around you, but you don't care. It dulls your empathy. It dulls your flight or fight response. And that is exactly why they use it on the German people during World War II, because it will control you. And when you take a drink of that city water, I hope you keep that in mind. Do whatever you can to avoid it. Good morning, Nancy. Jay says, always tell you not to swallow your toothpaste because the fluoride is bad for you, but go ahead and drink it. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, Jay, because that was exactly going to be one of my points, is that obviously fluoridation came around to prevent tooth decay, right? To prevent tooth decay. And so that was before we had fluoride in toothpaste. Now, what back then, when they first came out with this idea to put fluoride in water, it was only because they didn't have any other way to do it. Well, once they fluoridated toothpaste, they were supposed to go back and revise and take the fluoride out of the drinking water. But by then, of course, they realized that putting a neurotoxin in your drinking water, something, bottled water, that's recent. We haven't always had bottled water, obviously not recent, but I know when I was growing up, we didn't really go out and buy bottled water. I don't think most people did. You drank the water, it was in your tap. You didn't know. Jay says, don't forget the chlorine. Oh, and so many other things, Jay. And I missed the comment, but I know somebody said they have their water well tested. And of course, if you have well water here at my house, I tested the well water to the city water. The well water here at my home is so much cleaner. You can drink the well water as it is. You don't need to do anything. And it's cleaner than the water that we have coming out of the tap faucet, which is really scary. And Landon, thankfully, my well is straight from the aquifer. Mine too, Landon. And that makes such a big difference. And let's see here. Jay says, yes, we drink out of the hose. I know we did drink it out of the hose. But when I read these numbers, and to think that this study proves that giving your children water that is fluoridated is lowering their IQ. We talk about the dumbing down of America. We just talked about Oregon and how no longer reading, writing, and math comes into the equation when it comes to graduation. Now, that was because, of course, they said it's racist to believe that all members of our country have the ability to read, write, and do math, which is crazy. Thomas says, buy distilled water if you can. Yes, distilled water would be far better. There's so many different options right now There are so many different options. But what is the answer really? What is the answer? Because it's not just drinking bottled water or distilled water. We have to get out, we have to do our part. We have to talk to our water companies, our water treatment facilities. Wherever you live, you can request a report of how much fluoride is in your water. You can. You can test your water yourself to find out how much chloride is in your water. And we absolutely have to do that. We're the party, I think, of being complacent, aren't we? If you're conservative, then you're probably working all the time. You're probably busy. You don't have time to do all these things, but yet we worry about these things, but we don't have time to do anything about it. And I don't think that drinking water, and I know Jay says get a good water purifier, that's all great. But you know what? Your kids go to school, they go to other people's houses, they're still drinking the water. And I think we have to do more than that. We have to stop being complacent and we have to start fighting and doing what we need to do to make sure we are healthier. I don't feel like we can wait for Trump or a Trump to come along to fix our problems in this country. We have to take it upon ourselves. We rely too much on someone else to fix the problems for us. I think we all know that, yes, Trump will answer a lot of things. We also, I think, all know he'll probably never get in office. And so we just have to take it upon ourselves to do this. Reach out to your water company, talk to people, talk to your local officials, do what you need to do, find out how much fluoride and how much chlorine and other chemicals are in your water. And I don't think I have to tell you guys all the reports that are out there about other things in your water, right? Drugs, they find cocaine, LSD, fentanyl in our water supply, water your children are drinking. I haven't even read all those studies yet, but they certainly find it in the water. And I heard yesterday that what was it? There was some type of disease in the water, cancer. I haven't had time to look into this yet, but I read a report where it said that when they did some type of study on your city water that comes out of your tap, and that the water is giving us cancer. Again, take that with a grain of salt. I haven't read the report yet. I didn't have time, but I am going to look into that. But what are they doing to us? What are they doing to us? And with intent, without intent, to me, it all seems very intentional. Allison says the FDA is bought and paid for. I do not trust the FDA, the USDA, or any of these other organizations. None of them. Sherry says the answer is prepare. You've got to. And somebody else was talking about disruptors like scented fabric softeners, detergents. It's been proven. There's so many things we all use every single day, whether it's products we're putting on our face or our body, or we're ingesting them, that are very dangerous for us. Smelling them, a lot of these scents are very dangerous for us. Let's see, Landon. Best part about RFK being on the board with Trump, he will work to get all of the poison out of our food and water sources. Yes, he will. And I have heard RFK Jr. speak out many times against our water and our food, what I call Franken food. And of course, we're going to be talking a lot about that as time moves on. But in the meantime, we are out of time. I don't think there's anything else I had for you guys today. It's a Monday morning and it probably shows. I'm having really bad allergies today. And I took an allergy pill earlier. So my mouth is super dry. If you've ever felt like that, my eyes are really dry. I keep blinking because my contact lenses are dry. And I can't talk because my mouth is really dry. But I woke up sneezing, coughing, blowing my nose, all that kind of fun stuff. If you want to text the show, please do. You can do that at 314-546-2677. If you have any topics at all you want to talk about, send me a text and I will definitely. And Allison, by the way, I saw your text. I'll be getting to that for sure. Karen, I hope you also have a great day. Donna says, when you smell someone's perfume, that is called gassing. It's emitting a toxin. I never even thought about that, but that's true. Jay says, hamburger isn't from one cow. It's mixed with hundreds of cows. You're right, Jay. They did a DNA test one time on your typical grocery hamburger. And the DNA came back and it said, well, when you eat one hamburger patty, there are thousands of different cows' DNA in that one hamburger patty. And it really does make me wonder. And this is a story for another day for sure, but I'm going to throw this in there very quickly. I happened to drive past a dairy farm not far from my house. I won't say yet the name of the dairy company, milk company, because I don't want to get sued yet until I have time to look into it. But what I did see is that there were several cows who were emaciated, skin and bones. It was horrible to see. And then there was one laying dead in the field. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a major dairy supplier. What is going on? Why are these cows unhealthy? And then I drove back past over the weekend and I saw that they had a school bus there and they were showing the kids around the farm. And I didn't see any of the cattle that I had seen the last time. You know, there were other cattle out there, but not the ones I saw that were emaciated and dead. And then I drove down the road further, and guess what? I saw the same emaciated cattle, but they were down. They'd moved them before the school bus got there. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. And Landon, did you see my PM about my buddy? No, I didn't, Landon. I'm going to have to go back and look for that. My text line, the phone wasn't working for a couple of days. I couldn't figure out how to get it charged. I think it was just my charger that was broke, and I missed a few messages, and it just finally popped up again this morning. So I will take a look at that. And then Jay says separated due to disease. That very could be, Jay. It could be something completely normal, and I thought about that there are a lot of diseases that cattle get, and hopefully they were separated and that milk is not going into our food. Let's hope. Bill, Biden plans to make us weak to defend ourselves so these other countries can take us over. Absolutely so. No question about it. Well, guys, my time is up. I hope you all have a good day. I hope your Monday is so far better than mine is. Definitely a Monday for me, but I hope you guys do have a great day. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Hey, if you like the show, share the show. I will be back tomorrow, hopefully with a lot of other great news. If you have anything, again, you want to talk to me about, text me 314-546-2677. And again, it is a crazy Monday for me. Hopefully tomorrow will be a better day for everybody. Hope you guys all have a great day, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.